She stood in the doorway of her own bedroom, 7 months pregnant, watching her husband with another woman in their bed. He looked at her and laughed. "Get out," he said, like she was the intruder. Like 7 years of marriage meant nothing. His mistress wrapped herself in the silk robe he had given her for their anniversary in Paris. The robe, he said, matched her eyes. The robe, he said, would make her feel beautiful. Eleanor Brennan walked out of that house with nothing but her car keys and a business card she had carried for 3 years. A card with a phone number that could change everything. Her husband thought he was throwing away his plain, quiet wife. He had no idea who she really was. He had no idea what she was about to do. And by tomorrow morning, he would lose everything. This is her story. Get out. 2 words. Her husband's voice in their bedroom. But he was not talking to the woman underneath him. He was talking to Ellie. The front door had been unlocked when she arrived home. That should have been her first warning. In 7 years of marriage, Marcus had never once left the front door unlocked. He was obsessive about security, about control, about everything in his life looking exactly the way it should look. The alarm system he had installed cost $12,000. He checked the locks every night before bed, twice sometimes, 3 times if he was stressed. But today the door swung open when Ellie turned the handle. No resistance, no beeping from the alarm panel, just silence and the faint smell of her own lavender air freshener drifting through the hallway. She should have known then, should have felt it in her bones, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. Eleanor Brennan stood in the hallway of her own home at 4:17 in the afternoon. Her hand rested on her 7-month pregnant belly. The baby had been active all day, kicking and rolling and pressing against her bladder, making her stop 3 times on the drive home to use gas station bathrooms. Her purse hung from her shoulder. Inside it was a sonogram photo from this afternoon. Dr. Rebecca Shaw had wanted to show her something during the appointment. An irregular heartbeat, nothing serious probably just the position of the baby, but they would run additional tests tomorrow morning just to be safe. Dr. Shaw had smiled when she said it, that reassuring doctor smile that was supposed to make patients feel better. But Ellie had seen something else in her eyes, a flicker of concern, a hint of worry that contradicted the calm words. The drive home had been long. Traffic on Interstate 95 was backed up for miles. An accident near exit 47. She had sat in her silver Honda Accord for 37 minutes, watching the red brake lights stretch into the distance like a river of fire. The radio played songs she did not hear. Her mind was elsewhere, on the baby, on the tests, on how she would tell Marcus. He would worry. He always worried about things he could not control. That was what she told herself anyway. That his distance lately was just stress from work, just pressure from the investors, just anxiety about becoming a father for the first time at 34. She had driven home needing comfort, needing her husband to hold her and stroke her hair and tell her everything would be fine, needing to feel safe in his arms the way she had felt in the beginning, back when everything was new and perfect and full of promise. The house was silent except for sounds coming from upstairs. A rhythmic sound, familiar somehow, like something she should recognize but her brain refused to process. A woman's laugh, low and breathless, intimate. Ellie set her purse on the hallway table, the same antique table where she left her keys every single day, the same table Marcus had helped her pick out 3 years ago at a little shop in Hartford. He had complained about the price, said they could find something cheaper at a furniture store. She had paid for it herself with money from her personal account, the account he did not know existed. She climbed the stairs slowly. Her ankles were swollen from the pregnancy. The doctor said it was normal, said the swelling would go down after delivery. But every step felt heavy now, like walking through wet concrete, like her body was trying to stop her from reaching the top. Her back ached constantly these days. The baby had dropped lower in the past week, pressing against her spine, making it hard to sleep, hard to sit, hard to do anything except waddle from room to room like a penguin in a dress. The sounds got louder as she climbed, more distinct, more undeniable. The bedroom door was open. She saw them before they saw her. Marcus on top, his bare back flexing with each movement, his head thrown back, his mouth open, making sounds she recognized from their own intimacy, sounds he had not made with her in months. A woman beneath him, Dark hair spread across the pillow like spilled ink, red fingernails digging into his shoulders, leaving marks, claiming territory. The sheets were tangled around their bodies. Her sheets, the lavender-scented Egyptian cotton ones she had washed yesterday morning. The ones she had bought because Marcus once said he liked how they smelled, said they reminded him of his grandmother's garden, said they made him feel safe. The woman saw her first, Vanessa Cole, vice president of marketing at Brennan Tech Solutions, Marcus's company. Ellie had met her at 3 Christmas parties over the years, had made polite conversation about the weather and the catering and the traffic and nothing of any real substance, had complimented her dress once, a red sequin thing that cost more than Ellie's monthly grocery budget. She remembered thinking Vanessa was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that made other women feel invisible. Tall and thin and confident, perfect makeup, perfect hair. The kind of woman who commanded attention when she walked into a room. The kind of woman Ellie had never been. Vanessa screamed, a sharp theatrical sound that bounced off the bedroom walls and echoed through the house, like she was auditioning for a horror movie, like this was a performance rather than a catastrophe. Marcus turned, his face cycled through expressions like a slot machine landing on cymbals. Surprise first, then annoyance, like she had interrupted something important, then something worse, something that looked almost like amusement, almost like satisfaction. Well, he said, he did not bother covering himself, did not reach for a sheet or a pillow or anything to hide what was obviously happening. This is awkward. His voice was casual, conversational, like she had walked in on him watching television instead of betraying their marriage, their family, their entire life together. Ellie could not move. Her feet were welded to the hardwood floor her mother had helped her pick out. Her hands hung limp at her sides. Her mind processed fragments, disconnected images, details that would haunt her forever. Vanessa's red nail polish, chipped on the left thumb, a small imperfection that somehow made everything worse, made her human instead of a villain from a movie. The cologne Ellie had bought Marcus for his birthday sitting on the nightstand, the $200 bottle she had saved for 3 months to afford, the one she had wrapped in silver paper and tied with a blue ribbon, the one he had barely thanked her for, a wine glass on her side of the bed, her nightstand, the nightstand where she kept her reading glasses and her hand lotion and the photograph of her mother who had died when Ellie was 17. Lipstick on the rim of the glass, dark red, the same color as Vanessa's nails. The baby kicked, once, twice, strong and insistent, as if saying something only Ellie could hear. Mom, move. Something is wrong. We need to go. But she could not move, could not speak, could not do anything except stand there and watch her entire life collapse like a sandcastle at high tide. I said, get out, Eleanor. Marcus repeated the words more firmly this time. He stood up slowly, casually, like he had all the time in the world, like her presence was an inconvenience rather than a reckoning. Wrapped a sheet around his waist with practiced ease. Vanessa and I were having a private conversation. Private conversation. The euphemism was almost funny. Would have been funny if Ellie could remember how to laugh. Vanessa sat up in the bed, did not bother covering herself, let the sheet fall away, let Ellie see exactly what her husband had been touching, what he had been kissing, what he had chosen over her and their baby. Then Vanessa did something that broke something inside Ellie, something that would never fully heal. She laughed, actually laughed, a breathy, satisfied sound. The laugh of someone who had won, who had taken what she wanted and felt no shame about it. Oh my God, Marcus. Vanessa's voice was still thick with what they had been doing. Her face, look at her face. She looks like someone ran over her dog. 7 years of marriage, 7 years of building a life together, 7 years of compromises and sacrifices and small surrenders that had added up to something Ellie thought was love. The pregnancy they had tried so hard for. The fertility treatments that had cost $40,000. The hormone injections Ellie had given herself every night for months. The shots that left bruises on her thighs. The pills that made her nauseous. The procedures that made her feel like a science experiment rather than a woman. The disappointments, month after month, year after year. The negative tests she had cried over in bathroom stalls. The hopeful moments that turned into devastating letdowns. The conversations with Marcus where she apologized for her body, for her failures, for not being able to give him what he wanted. And then finally after 3 rounds of IVF, the positive test, the double line that meant everything had changed, the tears of joy she had cried alone in the bathroom because Marcus was at work, always at work, the way he had smiled when she showed him, the way he had spun her around in the kitchen like they were in a romantic movie, the way he had said, "This changes everything, Eleanor." Everything. She had believed him, had trusted him, had let herself dream of the future they would build together. The nursery she had spent months decorating, the gray walls she had painted herself because Marcus said he was too busy to help. Standing on a ladder at 7 months pregnant, getting paint in her hair, on her clothes, on the hardwood floors she had to scrub clean before he got home. The elephant mobile she had ordered from a small artisan shop in Vermont. 200 tiny pieces she had assembled over 3 nights while Marcus worked late, while Marcus was here, with her. The rocking chair she had found at an antique shop in Connecticut, the one that reminded her of the chair in her grandmother's house, the chair where her mother had rocked her as a baby, before the cancer, before everything fell apart the first time. All of it, everything she had built, everything she had believed, dissolving in front of her like sugar in hot water. You knew this was not working. Marcus picked up his phone from the nightstand, checked it while he talked, scrolled through something, did not even look at her. Do not pretend you did not know Eleanor. You are not stupid. I know you are not stupid. She had not known. Or maybe she had, maybe somewhere deep down in the part of her brain that protected her from painful truths she had suspected, had noticed the signs, had chosen to ignore them because the alternative was too terrible to face. The late nights at the office that had multiplied over the past year. First once a week, then twice, then every night. Coming home at 10 and 11 and midnight, smelling like expensive perfume she did not own. Saying he had been in meetings. Saying he was working on a big deal. Saying the company needed him. The business trips that stretched from 2 days to 5 to 7. Coming back with suitcases full of dirty clothes and receipts from restaurants she had never heard of. With credit card charges from hotels she had never visited. With no stories to tell except work was crazy and I am so tired. The way he had started criticizing her appearance around the time she got pregnant. Small comments at first, delivered with a smile, like jokes that were not really jokes. Maybe you should skip dessert tonight, Eleanor. You know how hard it will be to lose the baby weight. Are you really going to wear that? It is not very flattering. Maybe something darker, something that hides your stomach. You look tired. Have you thought about getting some work done? Nothing drastic, just a little refresher, something to help you look more like yourself. The way he flinched when she reached for him in bed. The headaches that appeared whenever she wanted intimacy. The early meetings that required him to sleep in the guest room. The excuses that multiplied like rabbits. The suggestion 3 months ago that she might be more attractive if she lost some weight before the baby even arrived. Said with a laugh, said like it was helpful advice. But his eyes had been serious. His eyes had been cold. His eyes had been looking at her the way you look at something you want to replace. Maybe 6 months ago. Maybe longer. Maybe the whole time. Maybe she had never really known him at all. I want you out by tonight. Marcus was scrolling through emails now, his thumb moving across the screen with practiced ease. Already moving on, already done with her. Vanessa is moving in this weekend. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. The word hit her like a physical blow. Divorce. Such a small word for something so enormous. Such a casual way to end 7 years. To discard her like an appliance that no longer worked properly. The baby kicked again. Harder this time. More insistent. Trying to wake her up. Trying to break through the fog that had settled over her brain. Ellie found her voice. It came out small. Broken. Like something stepped on. Like something dying. The baby. What about the baby, Marcus? Our daughter. We will work out custody. Marcus finally looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes were flat, empty, like staring into the eyes of a stranger. Like 7 years together had meant nothing at all. Do not be hysterical, Eleanor. It is unbecoming. Hysterical. The word he used whenever she expressed any emotion. Whenever she asked for anything. Whenever she tried to be heard, Vanessa climbed out of the bed, walked across the room with no self-consciousness at all, picked up Ellie's robe from the bathroom door, the silk one, cream-colored with pink trim, the anniversary gift from 3 years ago. They had been in Paris, walking along the Seine at sunset, drinking wine at a little cafe near Notre Dame. Marcus had given her the robe wrapped in tissue paper, had said it matched her eyes, had said he wanted her to feel beautiful every morning when she woke up. She had worn it every day since, had washed it carefully by hand, had mended a small tear in the sleeve rather than throw it away, had treasured it like the love it represented. Now Vanessa was wrapping herself in it, tying the belt around her narrow waist, running her fingers along the silk like she was already the mistress of this house, like Ellie was already gone. Honestly, Vanessa's voice was sweet, sympathetic, the voice of someone explaining something to a slow child. It is better this way. For everyone, especially for the baby. Children can sense when their parents are unhappy. You would not want your daughter growing up in a loveless home, would you? Ellie stared at the woman wearing her robe, standing in her bedroom, next to her husband, in her house, using her words against her. She tried to remember how to breathe. Marcus sighed, that heavy, disappointed sound he made whenever Ellie did something wrong, whenever she burned dinner or forgot to pick up his dry cleaning or failed to anticipate what he wanted before he wanted it. Eleanor, please. You are being dramatic. Just go pack a bag and we can discuss all the details later. I have a conference call with investors in an hour. This is not a good time for me. Not a good time. The understatement of the century. The absurdity of the decade. She took one step backward, then another. Her hand found the doorframe, steadied herself when her knees threatened to buckle. She walked down the stairs, her body moving on autopilot, her mind somewhere far away, watching from a great distance, unable to feel anything yet. The pain would come later, the grief, the rage, for now there was only numbness, only survival. She walked through the living room, past the couch where they had watched movies together, past the fireplace where they had hung their Christmas stockings, past the photos on the mantle that documented a marriage that had apparently been a lie from the beginning. Their wedding day, her in white, him in black, smiling like they meant it, like they believed in forever. Their honeymoon in Italy, sitting at a cafe in Rome, the Colosseum in the background, raising glasses of wine, laughing at something she could not remember, something that probably never happened the way she remembered it. The announcement photo from 3 months ago, Marcus with his hand on her pregnant belly, looking at the camera with pride, the perfect expecting father, the devoted husband, the image of a man who had everything he wanted, everything Allah, every single moment, every single smile, every single I love you. She walked out the front door, into the October afternoon that had turned gray while she was inside. Clouds had gathered, thunder rumbled in the distance, rain was coming. The first drops hit her face as she walked to her car. Cold, shocking, real in a way that nothing else was. She sat in her Honda Accord for 11 minutes before she could start the engine. She knew it was 11 minutes because she watched the digital clock on the dashboard, watched the numbers change. 423, 424, 425, 426. Her hands were shaking too hard to grip the steering wheel. Her vision was blurred with tears she did not remember starting to cry. Her breath came in short gasps that fogged the windshield. The baby moved inside her, rolling over, getting comfortable, settling into a new position. Unaware that everything had just ended. Unaware that her father had just thrown her mother away like yesterday's garbage. Unaware that the future they had been promised no longer existed. Ellie reached into her purse for her phone. She needed to call someone. Charlie, her father, anyone who could tell her what to do. Her fingers brushed against something else. Something she had almost forgotten was there. A business card, thick cardstock, heavy in her hand, embossed lettering that she could feel with her fingertips. William Ashford, Chief Executive Officer. Ashford Capital. A phone number. A direct line. A connection to a world she had walked away from 7 years ago. Her father. She had carried this card for 3 years, tucked it into a pocket in her purse and kept it there. Just in case. Just in case something happened. just in case she ever needed help that Marcus could not provide. She had never used it, had never even thought about using it, had been so determined to build a life on her own, to prove that she could succeed without her family name, without the money, without the connections that had defined her childhood. She held the card now in the gray light, the rain streaking down the windshield, the numbers blurring through her tears. She had two choices. She could crumble like they expected, become the humiliated wife, the pregnant woman thrown away, the cautionary tale that people would whisper about at dinner parties. Poor Eleanor. Did you hear what happened? Such a shame. She seemed so nice. She never saw it coming. Or she could become someone they had never known existed. The baby kicked one more time, a strong, determined movement, right against her ribs, like a tiny fist punching through the fog, like a voice saying, "Get up, Mom, fight back, show them who we are." Ellie wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, put the business card on the passenger seat, started the engine. The windshield wipers beat back and forth, clearing the rain away, clearing her vision. She pulled out of the driveway, did not look back at the house, did not look back at the bedroom window where her husband was probably already calling his lawyer, did not look back at any of it. There would be time for grief later, time for tears, time for the full weight of this destruction to settle onto her shoulders. Right now she had somewhere to be. Right now she had work to do. The rain fell harder as Ellie drove across the city. Her windshield wipers could barely keep up. Water streamed down the glass in sheets. The headlights of other cars blurred into smears of yellow and white. The world outside her window looked like a watercolor painting left out in a storm. She drove on autopilot, her body remembering the route even though her mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying the bedroom scene over and over. Marcus on top, Vanessa underneath, the laugh, the robe. "Get out, Eleanor." 23 minutes later, she pulled up outside Charlotte Monroe's brownstone on the Upper West Side. Charlie lived on the third floor of a building that had stood on this corner for over 100 years. Red brick and white trim and tall windows that looked out over the trees lining the street. The kind of building with high ceilings and original hardwood floors and neighbors who minded their own business. Ellie had helped Charlie move in 4 years ago, had carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs while Charlie directed traffic and complained about the movers being late, had drunk champagne on the bare floor of the empty living room while they talked about the future and all the things they were going to accomplish. She had been pregnant then too, or thought she was. A false alarm, it turned out. A chemical pregnancy, the doctors called it. There and then gone, like a dream she could not quite remember. She stood in front of Charlie's door now, soaking wet, her hair plastered to her skull, her dress clinging to her pregnant belly, mascara running down her cheeks in dark rivers, looking like something washed up on a beach after a hurricane. She knocked 3 times, her hands shaking against the wood. The door opened almost immediately, like Charlie had been waiting, like she had known something was coming. Charlotte Monroe was 33 years old, dark hair cut short in a practical bob, brown eyes that noticed everything. She wore gray sweatpants and an old Wharton Business School t-shirt that had seen better days, reading glasses perched on her nose, a pen tucked behind her ear. She had clearly been working. Charlie was always working. Corporate attorney at Morrison and Associates, one of the biggest firms in Manhattan. Partner track. 14-hour days. The kind of career Ellie had once imagined for herself before she gave it all up for love. Charlie took one look at Ellie's face, did not ask questions, did not say a single word, just reached out and pulled her inside and closed the door against the rain. The apartment was warm, soft light from the lamps, books stacked on every surface, the smell of coffee and something cooking in the kitchen. A home that felt like safety, like the opposite of everything Ellie had just experienced. Charlie guided her to the couch, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, disappeared into the kitchen and came back with a cup of hot tea. Chamomile, Ellie's favorite. Charlie remembered things like that. Charlie remembered everything. She set a box of tissues on the coffee table, sat down in the chair across from Ellie, crossed her legs, waited. The silence stretched for a long moment, Ellie holding the warm cup in her shaking hands, staring at the steam rising from the surface, trying to find the words for something that had no words. Tell me everything, Charlie said finally. Her voice was calm, steady. The voice she used in depositions when she needed witnesses to trust her completely. Whatever it is, whatever happened, just tell me. So Ellie told her everything, every detail, every word, every image that had burned itself into her memory like a brand. The unlocked front door, the sounds from upstairs, the bedroom door standing open like an invitation to her own destruction. Marcus on top, Vanessa underneath, the red nails digging into his back, the wine glass on her nightstand, the cologne she had given him for his birthday, the way he had looked at her when he turned around, the amusement in his eyes, the complete absence of shame or regret or anything resembling human decency. Get out, Eleanor. The laugh, that terrible, satisfied laugh. Oh my God, Marcus. Her face, the robe, her robe, the anniversary gift from Paris, wrapped around another woman's body like it had always belonged there. The casual dismissal, the conference call with investors, the lawyer who would be in touch, the finality of it all. Do not be hysterical, Eleanor. It is unbecoming. When Ellie finished speaking, the tea had gone cold in her hands. The blanket was soaked from her dress, and Charlie's expression had shifted. The sympathy was still there, the concern for her friend, the anger on her behalf, but something else had joined it, something harder, something calculating, the look Charlie got when she was preparing for battle. Ellie. Charlie set down her own mug very carefully, very deliberately, like she was trying not to break something. When did you say this started? The affair? I do not know. Ellie pulled the blanket tighter. She could not stop shivering even though the apartment was warm. Today was the first time I ever saw anything. The first time I knew for certain. No. Charlie's voice was firm. That is not what I am asking. When did you first suspect? When did things start to feel wrong? Well, no, when did Marcus start acting differently? Ellie closed her eyes, forced herself to look backward through time, through the past year, the past 2 years, all the moments she had explained away, all the warning signs she had chosen to ignore, the late nights that multiplied like bacteria, first once a week, then twice, then every single night, the business trips that stretched longer and longer, 2 days becoming 5 becoming 7. Coming home with suitcases full of secrets, the criticisms that started small and grew larger. Her weight, her clothes, her hair, her face, her body that was growing a child and still was not good enough. The flinching when she reached for him, the headaches, the early meetings, the locked phone and the deleted messages and the passwords that changed without explanation. The cold shoulder that became the normal temperature of their marriage. The distance that grew until she could no longer remember what closeness felt like. Maybe 6 months ago, Ellie admitted. Her voice was very small. Maybe longer. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just stress from work, the pregnancy, the company. I told myself marriages go through difficult patches, that we would get through it together. Charlie pulled her laptop from underneath a pile of legal briefs, opened it, started typing something. I need to show you something, she said, her fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced speed. I should have shown you sooner, but I did not have proof. I did not want to hurt you without being absolutely certain. Shown me what? Charlie turned the laptop around so Ellie could see the screen. Bank statements, credit card bills, financial records that Charlie should not have had access to, that no one should have had access to without authorization. Charlie had found them during a routine consultation about updating the Brennan family trust documents, a standard review that had turned up something decidedly not standard, something that had made her keep digging, keep searching, keep building a file she hoped she would never have to use. Hotel receipts from the past 18 months, the Plaza, the Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton, always the same suites, always paid in cash, always disguised as business expenses, jewelry purchases, Tiffany and Company, Cartier, Harry Winston, necklaces and bracelets and earrings worth tens of thousands of dollars, pieces that Ellie had never seen, never received, never knew existed. A lease on a luxury condominium in Tribeca, 2 bedrooms, doorman building, floor-to-ceiling windows, $12,000 a month. signed with Marcus's name but sent to an address Ellie had never heard of. Restaurant bills from places that required reservations months in advance, tables for two, expensive wine, romantic dinners that Ellie was never invited to. It has been going on for at least 18 months, Charlie said quietly. Maybe longer. I could only access so much without raising red flags. But the pattern is clear, Eleanor. This was not a mistake. This was not a moment of weakness. This was a systematic, ongoing deception. Ellie stared at the screen, the numbers blurring together, the evidence undeniable. 18 months, a year and a half, 547 days of lies. But he said he wanted a baby. Her voice sounded hollow to her own ears, like it was coming from very far away. He said it would bring us closer. He said starting a family was the most important thing to him. He cried when I showed him the positive test, Charlie. Actual tears. Charlie's face softened with something that might have been pity or might have been rage on Ellie's behalf. He needed an heir, Charlie said. For the company image, family man, trustworthy, stable, the kind of CEO that investors feel comfortable with. She paused. It is all branding, Eleanor. Everything Marcus does is branding. You were part of the image he was building. The perfect wife, the perfect pregnancy, the perfect family, and Vanessa. Vanessa is the life he actually wants, the woman he actually desires, the reward he gave himself for being successful. Charlie closed the laptop. You were the resume, the credentials, the proof that he was a serious person. She is the celebration. Ellie stood up suddenly. The blanket fell to the floor. The tea spilled across the coffee table. She needed to move, needed to not be sitting still, needed to do something with the energy that was building in her chest like a scream. She walked to Charlie's bathroom, closed the door, locked it. The tiles were cold under her bare feet. She had lost her shoes somewhere between the house and here, left them in the car maybe, or in the rain. She could not remember. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall, her pregnant belly rising in front of her. She counted the tiles, something to focus on, something concrete, something real in a world that had turned upside down. 37, 38, 30, 39, 40. Her brain needed facts, numbers, things that did not lie, things that did not betray, things that stayed exactly where you put them. 41, 42, 43, 44. The baby moved inside her. A slow roll, a gentle reminder that she was not alone, that even now, even in this moment of complete devastation, there was someone else depending on her. A knock at the door, soft, careful. There is more, Charlie said through the wood. I am sorry, Eleanor, but there is more you need to know. Of course there was always more. The wound just kept opening, kept revealing new depths of infection. Ellie unlocked the door, opened it, followed Charlie back to the couch, sat down in the wet spot she had left before. Did not care. What else, she said. Just tell me. I need to know everything. Charlie pulled up more documents on the laptop. Spreadsheets this time. Financial projections. Earnings reports. Marcus's company is failing, she said. Brennan Tech Solutions has been losing money for at least 2 years. Probably longer. The real numbers are hidden behind fake contracts and inflated revenue projections. But the underlying business is hemorrhaging cash. How do you know this? I have contacts. People talk when they are worried about their jobs, about their pensions, about their futures. Charlie pointed to a column of red numbers. The company needs an emergency cash infusion or it will collapse within 6 months. Marcus has been searching for buyers, investors, anyone willing to take the risk. Ellie processed this slowly. Layer upon layer of deception, lie stacked upon lie. He told me the company was doing well, that they had their best quarter ever last spring, that he was getting calls from Fortune 500 companies wanting to partner. He told everyone that, Charlie said. The board, the shareholders, the SEC. That is what securities fraud looks like, Eleanor. He has been cooking the books for years, falsifying earnings reports, creating fake contracts with shell companies to inflate revenue numbers. Securities fraud, federal crime, prison time. Her husband was not just a cheater, he was a criminal. There is a meeting scheduled for next Thursday, Charlie continued. Potential investors from Harrington Capital, big firm out of Boston. Marcus is hoping they will buy the company, save him from the mess he has created. And if they do not, then everything collapses. The stock becomes worthless. The employees lose their jobs and their pensions. The vendors do not get paid. The whole thing comes crashing down like a house of cards. And Marcus goes from CEO to defendant. Best case scenario, he pays massive fines and is banned from running any public company ever again. Worst case scenario, he goes to prison. Ellie sat very still, processing, calculating. Her brain starting to work again after the shock of the past few hours. He kicked me out tonight, she said slowly. Told me Vanessa's moving in this weekend. Told me his lawyer will be in touch about the divorce. Yes, he is trying to protect his assets, trying to hide money before the divorce proceedings start, before anyone can look too closely at the books. That would be my guess. Ellie looked at her friend, the woman who had known her since they were freshmen at Wharton, who had watched her fall in love with Marcus, who had stood beside her at the wedding even though she had reservations, who had kept those reservations to herself because that is what good friends do. Charlie. Ellie's voice was different now. Something had shifted. Something had changed. You know who my father is? Charlie nodded slowly, set down the laptop, gave Ellie her full attention. I know, no one else does. Marcus does not know, I never told him. He thinks my father runs a small investment firm in Connecticut, 20 or 30 employees. Nothing significant, nothing that would threaten his ego. Charlie waited, her eyes steady, her expression patient. My father is William Ashford, Ellie said. The words felt strange in her mouth after 7 years of hiding them. Founder and chief executive officer of Ashford Capital. The firm manages approximately $2.3 billion in assets. We have offices in New York, London, Hong Kong, and Dubai. We handle investments for sovereign wealth funds, for old money families, for people whose names you would recognize from history books. I know, Charlie said for the third time. You told me during finals week our senior year. After too much wine and too little sleep, you made me promise never to tell anyone. I remember. Why are you telling me this now? Ellie stood up, walked to Charlie's window, looked out at the rain still falling, the streetlights making halos in the mist, the city going about its business unaware that one woman's world had just ended. Because I hid myself for 7 years, Ellie said. Her voice was steady now, strong, made myself small, quiet, invisible. I wanted Marcus to love me for who I was, not for my money, not for my family name, not for the connections that could advance his career. She turned to face Charlie, and he still could not love me, even when I was nobody, even when I had nothing to offer except myself. He still needed someone else. He still betrayed me. He still threw me away like garbage. Eleanor, he kicked me out of my home tonight, Charlie, while I am 7 months pregnant with his child, while his mistress laughed at me, while she wore my robe, my anniversary gift, the one he gave me in Paris when he said he wanted me to feel beautiful. Ellie reached into her purse, found the business card she had carried for 3 years, held it up in the lamplight. Call my father, she said. Tell him I am ready to come home. Charlie took the card, looked at the embossed letters, the direct phone number that fewer than 20 people in the world had access to. Are you sure, she asked. Once you make this call, everything changes. You cannot go back to being invisible, cannot pretend to be ordinary. The whole world will know who you really are. He kicked me out, Charlie, her pregnant wife. While his mistress laughed, she paused. Marcus Brennan has no idea what he just set in motion. He thought he was throwing away his plain, quiet wife. He thought he was discarding something worthless. And what was he actually doing? Ellie smiled, for the first time since the bedroom, a cold, sharp smile that Charlie had never seen before. He woke up in Ashford. Charlie picked up her phone, started dialing. William Ashford had been waiting for this call for 7 years, not hoping for it, not wishing for his daughter's heart to be broken, not praying for her marriage to fail, but waiting, prepared, ready for the moment when Eleanor would need her family again. He had known from the beginning that Marcus Brennan was wrong for her, had seen through the charm and the ambition in the self-made success story, had recognized the hunger in the younger man's eyes, the need to climb, the willingness to use anyone and anything to get what he wanted. But Eleanor had been in love. 24 years old and certain she had found her soulmate, certain she could build a life separate from the Ashford name, certain she did not need the money or the connections or the power that came with being William Ashford's only child. He had respected her choice, had stepped back, had watched from a distance as she walked away from everything he had built for her, had let her marry a man who was not good enough because that was what fathers did for daughters they loved. They let them make their own mistakes. They waited on the sidelines. They were ready when the phone finally rang. The phone rang at 9:43 on a rainy October evening. Charlie Munro's name on the caller ID, the attorney friend from Eleanor's Wharton days. The only person besides William himself who knew the truth about the Ashford family. He answered on the second ring. Charlotte, his voice was calm, controlled. Whatever had happened, he would handle it. That was what he did, what he had always done. What is it? What has happened? It is Eleanor, Charlie said. You need to come. I will text you my address. The line went dead. William Ashford was out the door in 4 minutes. His driver waiting in the garage beneath his Central Park West penthouse. The address from Charlie's text already programmed into the navigation. He did not bring bodyguards, did not call ahead, did not make any of the careful preparations he would normally make before traveling anywhere in the city. This was not business. This was family. This was his daughter. The drive took 19 minutes. Traffic was light because of the rain. The city slick and shining under the streetlights. He climbed 3 flights of stairs to Charlie's apartment. Knocked once. The door opened immediately. Charlie stepped aside without a word. Let him see what was waiting in the living room, his daughter, wrapped in a blanket on the couch, mascara running down her cheeks, hair still damp from the rain, 7 months pregnant and looking like she had aged 10 years since he saw her last, looking like her mother had looked after the diagnosis, after the doctors had explained what stage 4 meant, after Hope had been surgically removed along with the tumor. William crossed the room in 3 long strides, sat down beside his daughter, did not say anything, did not ask what happened, just put his hand on hers and waited. Eleanor looked up at him, her eyes red, her face swollen, the girl he had raised and protected and loved with everything he had. Tell me what he did, William said finally. Tell me everything. So she told him. For the 3rd time that night, every detail, every word, every image that had burned itself into her memory. The bedroom, the mistress, the laughter, the robe. Get out, Eleanor. The dismissal, the lawyer, the conference call, the casual destruction of 7 years like it meant nothing at all. William Ashford had stared down CEOs and senators and heads of state without blinking, had negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars while adversaries tried to intimidate him, had built an empire from scratch through nothing but intelligence and determination and an absolute refusal to lose. He had to sit down when his daughter finished speaking, not from weakness, from the effort required to contain his rage, to keep it locked inside where it could not explode into something destructive. The company is failing, Eleanor continued. Her voice was stronger now, steadier, like telling the story again had given her some measure of control over it. Brennan Tech has been hemorrhaging money for years. He has been falsifying reports to the SEC, creating fake contracts, cooking the books. I know. William's voice was very quiet, very controlled. I have been tracking it since you married him. You knew. I suspected. The numbers never added up. A company growing that fast without the fundamentals to support it. The revenue projections that were always just slightly better than industry averages. The acquisitions that never seemed to generate actual returns. He shook his head slowly. But you loved him, and you asked me to let you have a normal life, to stay out of your business, to let you build something on your own terms. You did what I asked. I did. William looked at his daughter, at the woman she had become, the woman she had hidden. I respected your choice even when it went against every instinct I had, even when I wanted to investigate him more deeply, even when I wanted to destroy him before he could hurt you. You were not wrong about him. No, I was not wrong, William's jaw tightened. But you needed to see it yourself, Eleanor. No one can tell you the truth about someone you love. You have to find it on your own. That is the tragedy of these situations. By the time the lies become visible, the damage is already done. Eleanor stood up, walked to Charlie's window. the same window where she had stood earlier. But everything was different now. She was different. She thought about the woman she used to be. Before Marcus, Eleanor Ashford, daughter of a billionaire, heir to a financial empire, graduate of Wharton where she had finished summa cum laude, the youngest person in the history of the program to complete the honors track. Her senior thesis on emerging market investment strategies was still cited in academic journals 10 years later. She had negotiated her first multi-million-dollar acquisition at 23 years old, sitting across the table from men 3 times her age. Men who assumed she would be easy to intimidate, easy to manipulate, easy to dismiss. She had proven them wrong, had held her ground, had walked out of that room with everything she wanted in the respect of people who had underestimated her. She had been groomed to run an empire since she could walk, her father teaching her to read financial statements before she could read storybooks, taking her to board meetings while other children went to birthday parties, showing her how power actually worked, how money really moved, how the world operated beneath the polished surface. And then she had met Marcus Brennan at a charity gala in Connecticut. He had seemed different from the men she usually encountered. Hungry but honest about it, ambitious but not pretentious, self-made in a world where most people inherited everything they had. He had not known who she was, had not recognized the Ashford name, had seen only Eleanor, a pretty woman in a blue dress working for a small nonprofit that helped inner-city children. Driving a used Honda, living in a modest apartment, saving money for a vacation she would probably never take. He had fallen in love with her, or so she thought. She had fallen in love with being seen as ordinary, as normal, as something other than the heiress everyone wanted something from. She had buried the Ashford princess so completely that sometimes she forgot she had ever existed, forgot who she really was, forgot what she was capable of. She had done what so many women do when they fall in love, made herself smaller, softer, less threatening, dimmed her light so Marcus could shine brighter, lowered her voice so his could fill every room, pretended to be less intelligent, less ambitious, less everything, because that was what he seemed to need. A wife who looked up to him, who depended on him, who would never outshine him or challenge him or make him feel inadequate. And in the end, none of it had mattered. He had betrayed her anyway, had thrown her away like garbage, had laughed while his mistress wore her robe. The investor meeting, she finally said. Her voice was calm, clear, completely different from the broken woman who had arrived at this apartment 2 hours ago. When is it? Thursday, 4 days from now. Who is the lead investor? It was going to be Harrington Capital, William replied. But they pulled out this morning. Word leaked about the financial irregularities. They do not want the liability exposure, so Marcus needs a new buyer. Fast. Someone who will not look too closely at the books. Someone desperate enough or foolish enough to take the deal without proper due diligence. Yes, exactly. Eleanor turned from the window, faced her father, her eyes clear, her jaw set, the expression of a woman who had made a decision and would not be moved from it. Then Ashford Capital will make an offer, she said, tomorrow morning. Through a shell company he has never heard of. We will offer above market value. We will promise to keep him on as CEO. We will give him everything he thinks he wants. William studied his daughter, the steel in her voice, the clarity in her eyes, the absolute certainty that radiated from her like heat from a flame. She looked more like her mother than she ever had before. And then, he asked, after we close the deal, after we own his company, what happens then? Then we remove him, strip him of everything he built, everything he lied and cheated and stole to create. We make sure the world knows exactly who Marcus Brennan really is. That is not a small thing, Eleanor. Once you start down this road, there is no turning back. You will be visible again, known. Everyone will see the Ashford heiress standing where they expected to see a broken woman. Good, let them see. She smiled that cold, sharp smile again. For 7 years I hid who I was, made myself small, made myself invisible. And he still could not love me. He still betrayed me. He still kicked me out like I was nothing. She walked back to the couch, sat down beside her father. I am done hiding, Dad. I am done being small. I am done pretending to be less than I am so that insecure men can feel bigger. You understand what you are doing. This is not just about revenge. This is about destroying him completely. His career, his reputation, his entire identity. There will be nothing left when you are finished. I know, Eleanor said, and I do not care. He kicked me out of my home while I am carrying his child, while his mistress laughed at me, while she wore my anniversary gift and told me it was better this way. She paused. Let the silence fill the room. This is not revenge, she said finally. This is accountability. This is consequences. This is showing Marcus Brennan that actions have outcomes he cannot control, that the quiet wife he dismissed was keeping score the entire time. William nodded slowly. Then he picked up his phone. Thomas? It is William. Wake up the legal team, all of them. We are acquiring Brennan Tech Solutions by Friday morning. Yes, I understand what time it is. This is priority one. Everything else stops until this is done. He hung up, looked at his daughter. Your mother would be proud of you, he said. I know. Eleanor touched her belly where her daughter was moving, felt the small kicks that reminded her she was not alone. I felt her today, when everything fell apart, when I was sitting in the car unable to move. I felt her telling me to get up, to fight, to become who I was always supposed to be. William put his arm around his daughter, pulled her close. You hid yourself for 7 years, he said. Played small. Let him believe he was the success story, the self-made man, and the one with all the power. But you were the one who was truly self-made, Eleanor. You walked away from everything I built, started over with nothing, married a man who had no idea what you were worth, and you did it all for love, and he still could not love me. No, William's voice was soft, sad. He could not, but that says everything about him. And nothing about you. Eleanor leaned into her father's embrace, let herself feel safe for the first time since the bedroom door, since the red nails and the silk robe and the words that had ended everything. She let herself cry, just for a moment, just until the baby kicked again. Then she straightened, wiped her eyes, looked at her father with the expression he had seen in boardrooms and negotiations and every moment that truly mattered. Let us get to work, she said. The phone rang at 2:17 in the morning. Eleanor was not sleeping, had not slept more than 40 minutes since leaving the house. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them. Marcus on top, Vanessa underneath, the twisted sheets, the scattered clothes, the laugh that echoed through her skull like a bell that would not stop ringing. She was staying at the Greenwich Hotel in Tribeca, a boutique property her father had acquired 4 years ago as part of a larger real estate portfolio. The staff knew the Ashford name, knew to be discreet, knew that certain guests required absolute privacy. She had checked in under her maiden name, Eleanor Ashford, Suite 712. Do not disturb under any circumstances. The suite was elegant in the way expensive hotels manage to be. High ceilings painted cream, neutral furniture that offended no one, artwork that suggested taste without committing to any particular style, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city lights. Safe, impersonal. The opposite of the house she had shared with Marcus for 6 years. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand where she had been staring at it for hours. Unknown number. No caller ID. She almost let it go to voicemail. Almost decided that nothing good could come from answering a block call at 2 in the morning. But something made her pick up. Some instinct that had kept her alive and functioning through 20 hours of crisis. Mrs. Brennan? A man's voice. Nervous, apologetic. Speaking quietly like he was afraid of being overheard. I am very sorry to disturb you so late, but I think there are things happening that you need to know about. Who is this? Henry Crawford, Chief Financial Officer of Brennan Tech Solutions. We met at the holiday party last December. You asked me about my wife, Susan. We talked by the bar while everyone else was networking. Eleanor remembered, a small man with kind eyes and a permanent worried expression. Gray hair thinning at the temples, glasses that he pushed up his nose every few seconds. He had been standing alone nursing a drink that he was not actually drinking, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. She had approached him because he seemed like someone who needed a friend, had asked about his family because that was what you did at these things, had learned about Susan, stage 4 breast cancer, aggressive, spreading fast. Marcus had wanted to fire him, had called him a distraction, had said the company could not afford to carry someone whose mind was obviously elsewhere, had used the word dead weight like it was a reasonable description of a man watching his wife die. Eleanor had intervened, had talked to Marcus in private, had convinced him to give Henry more time, had argued that loyalty mattered, that you did not throw away good people just because they were going through difficult things. And then quietly, secretly, without telling anyone, including Marcus, she had made an anonymous donation to cover the cost of Susan's experimental treatment, the targeted therapy that insurance would not pay for, the $400,000 gamble that might save her life. She had used money from the trust fund her mother had left her, the only time in 7 years of marriage that she had touched those accounts, the only time she had let the Ashford wealth do something good in her new life. "I remember you, Henry," Eleanor said. "How is Susan doing?" "In remission. 18 months now. The doctors say her prognosis is excellent. She is talking about going back to teaching next fall." Henry's voice cracked slightly. "Because of you, because of what you did, I am glad she is doing well. Mrs. Brennan, I need to tell you something." Henry's voice dropped even lower. "Something is happening at the company. Something you need to know about before it is too late." "Tell me." "He is moving money. I saw the transfers tonight. I was working late going through the quarterly reconciliation and I found discrepancies. Big ones, money flowing out to offshore accounts, shell companies in the Cayman Islands, numbered accounts in Switzerland, places that do not ask questions." "How much?" $2.3 million so far." Eleanor heard papers shuffling through the phone, "But there is more coming. I can see the pending transactions. He is liquidating everything he can get his hands on, preparing for something. Preparing for the divorce," Eleanor said. Her voice was flat, unsurprised. "Moving assets before the lawyers can freeze them. That is what I thought too. But there is something else. Something worse." "What?" "He has been paying Vanessa Cole through the company, listed her as a senior strategy consultant. $300,000 annual salary plus performance bonuses plus a car allowance plus expenses." Henry paused. "I have been tracking it for months, trying to understand where all the money was going. She has done almost nothing to justify that compensation. No reports, no analyses, no actual work product, just invoices that Marcus personally approves every month. The affair had been a business expense. The company paying for Marcus's mistress, shareholders funding his betrayal, employees subsidizing his infidelity." "Why are you telling me this, Henry?" Silence on the line, long enough that Eleanor thought the connection might have dropped. Then Henry spoke again, more quietly than before, like he was confessing something he had carried for a long time. "3 years ago, when Susan was at her worst, I was falling apart. Could not focus. Could not work. Could not do anything except sit in hospital rooms and watch the woman I loved disappear a little more each day. Marcus called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon, said the company could not afford to carry dead weight anymore. His exact word, dead weight. Said if my numbers did not improve by the end of the quarter, he would have to let me go." I remember. "I went home that night and sat in my car for 2 hours. We had no savings. Susan's treatment was bankrupting us. If I lost my job, we would lose everything. Our house, our insurance, her access to the doctors who were keeping her alive. I did not know what to do. I actually thought about." Henry stopped, drew a breath. "I thought about not being around anymore, about how much easier it would be for everyone if I just was not there." "Oh, Henry." "And then you intervened, talked to Marcus, made him give me another chance. And a week later, this anonymous donation appeared. Enough to cover the experimental treatment, enough to save my wife's life. I just wanted to help. You did more than help, Mrs. Brennan. You gave us a future. You gave Susan a chance to see our grandchildren. You gave me a reason to keep going when I had run out of reasons. I never said anything because you asked me not to, because you said the money was from a foundation that did not want publicity, because you seemed to want it to stay secret." "I did want that," Eleanor said softly. "I know, and I respected that, but I never forgot. And tonight when I saw those transfers, when I saw what Marcus was doing, when I realized he was preparing to destroy you the same way he tried to destroy me, I had to call." Henry paused. Let the silence emphasize what came next. "Marcus Brennan does not deserve that company. He does not deserve you. and he does not deserve to hide behind his board of directors while he destroys innocent people's lives. Eleanor sat up in bed, turned on the lamp, found a notepad and pen from the hotel desk. Henry, I need you to document everything. Every transfer, every account number, every dollar that moves from now until I tell you to stop. I have been documenting for months, Henry said, since I first started noticing irregularities in the books. Since I realized that the numbers Marcus was reporting to the board did not match the numbers in the actual accounts. Why? Because I knew this day would come. Men like Marcus Brennan always fall eventually. Their lies get too big to sustain. Their arrogance makes them careless. I wanted to be ready when it happened. I wanted to be useful to whoever finally held him accountable. Eleanor thought about the employees at Brennan Tech, the 347 people whose livelihoods depended on that company, the developers and administrators and maintenance workers and cafeteria staff, the pension funds they had contributed to for years, the families they supported. This was not just about her marriage anymore, not just about revenge or heartbreak or a woman scorned. This was about everyone Marcus had hurt, everyone he was still hurting, everyone he would continue to hurt if someone did not stop him. Thank you, Henry, she said. Keep documenting. Keep watching. But be careful. If Marcus finds out you are talking to me, he will not find out. I know how to be invisible, Mrs. Brennan. I have been invisible my entire career. That is why I am good at my job. No one notices the person who just sits in the corner and takes notes. I will be in touch soon. There are things happening that I cannot explain right now, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? After what you did for Susan, Henry's voice was firm. Certain. I would walk through fire for you, Mrs. Brennan. Just tell me what you need. The call ended. Eleanor sat in the dark hotel room for a long moment, processing everything she had just learned, adding it to the picture that was forming in her mind. Her phone buzzed again. Not a call this time. Notifications flooding in like a dam had broken somewhere. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Every social media platform she had accounts on lighting up simultaneously. She opened Instagram first. Marcus had posted a photograph that made her stomach clench. Him and Vanessa sitting at a restaurant table, champagne glasses raised, big smiles, expensive clothes, looking like the happiest couple in the world. The caption read, "Sometimes the wrong thing leads you to the right person." Excited for this new chapter in my life. Thank you to everyone who has supported me through this transition. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag love wins. Posted 18 minutes ago. Already 17,000 likes. 467 comments and growing. She scrolled through the comments. Most were outraged on her behalf. Your wife is 7 months pregnant, you absolute monster. This is disgusting. How can you smile while your pregnant wife is out there somewhere alone? Hashtag love wins. Hashtag cheating wins is more like it. Men like this make me sick. She deserves so much better. But some people defended him. A surprising number. If he was not happy, he deserved to find happiness elsewhere. We do not know her side of the story. Maybe she was the problem. People change and grow apart. It happens. Stop judging. At least he is being honest now instead of living a lie. Vanessa had posted too, a separate photograph, a selfie in the same restaurant. Diamond necklace at her throat that Eleanor recognized from the credit card statements Charlie had shown her. Dark red lipstick, perfect hair, glowing with satisfaction. When you know, the caption read. Thank you for all the love and support from everyone who understands that love cannot be controlled. To everyone sending hate, just remember that you do not know the whole story. Marcus and I are living our truth and nothing can dim our light. Hashtag soulmates. Hashtag unbothered. Hashtag authentic. Eleanor's hands were shaking. She wanted to throw the phone across the room, wanted to smash it against the wall, wanted to post something back, some defense of herself, some explanation that would make everyone understand what had really happened. Her phone rang. Charlie. Do not look at it, Charlie said immediately, her voice sharp, urgent. Whatever you are seeing right now, put the phone down and do not engage. Too late. Listen to me, Eleanor. I know it hurts. I know you want to respond. I know every instinct you have is screaming at you to defend yourself. But that is exactly what he wants. He wants you to engage, wants you to look hysterical, wants to create a narrative where he is the victim of a crazy jealous wife. But the lies, Charlie, everyone is seeing the lies. Everyone is going to believe. Let them believe. For now, let Marcus celebrate. Let Vanessa preen. Let the whole world think they are witnessing true love conquering all. How is that helping me? Because every post is evidence. Charlie's voice softened slightly, took on the tone of an attorney explaining strategy to a client. Every hashtag blessed, every caption about new beginnings and authentic love, every comment he makes, it is all documentation of his character, his priorities, his complete lack of remorse or self-awareness. I do not understand when this goes to court, when the SEC investigation becomes public. When the world finds out about the fraud and the embezzlement and the mistress being paid through company funds, all of this becomes Exhibit A. The man celebrating his affair online while his pregnant wife was alone in a hotel room. The CEO posting about new beginnings while his employees' pensions were disappearing into offshore accounts. Charlie paused. Let the silence emphasize what came next. He is building the case against himself, Eleanor. He is documenting his own destruction. All you have to do is let him. Eleanor set down the phone, stood up from the bed, walked to the window. The city spread out before her. Millions of lights, millions of lives. People sleeping and working and falling in love and having their hearts broken. None of them aware that one woman was standing in a hotel room planning something that would make headlines around the world. Her anger crystallized in that moment, stopped being hot and reactive, became something colder, more focused, more patient, more. She had learned patience from her father, had learned to wait for the right moment, to let your opponent think they were winning, to give them enough rope to hang themselves. Marcus thought he was in control, thought he had disposed of the boring wife and was free to live his best life with his exciting mistress. Thought the biggest consequence he would face was some awkward conversations with mutual friends. He had no idea what was coming. Eleanor walked to the desk, pulled out the legal pad, started making lists, assets Marcus was hiding, accounts, properties, shell companies, employees at risk, names, positions, years of service, pension values, board members, loyalties, vulnerabilities, potential allies, evidence of fraud, documents, witnesses, paper trails, Vanessa's salary, $300,000 a year for nothing. She wrote for 2 hours, filling page after page with plans and contingencies and worst-case scenarios. By 4 o'clock, the acquisition documents were finalized. Her father's legal team working through the night. Thomas Whitfield personally reviewing every clause. The offer would arrive on Marcus's desk at 9 tomorrow morning. Above market value, generous terms. Everything he thought he wanted. He would be so relieved, so grateful, so certain that someone had finally come to save him from the consequences of his own actions. He would sign without reading the fine print, without asking the questions he should ask, without realizing that the lifeline being thrown to him was actually a noose. Eleanor signed her name at the bottom of the final document, not Eleanor Brennan. That name belonged to someone else, someone who had trusted and been betrayed, someone who had made herself small for a man who could not love her no matter how small she became. Eleanor Ashford, the woman she had buried for 7 years, the woman she was becoming again. I do not understand. Marcus Brennan's voice echoed through the glass-walled conference room on the 43rd floor of Brennan Tech headquarters. The Manhattan skyline spread out behind him through the windows, storm clouds gathering in the distance, thunder rumbling somewhere over New Jersey. Who is Windmere Holdings? I have never heard of them. Why are they offering so much for a company they know nothing about? His legal team exchanged glances across the polished mahogany table. 6 attorneys in expensive suits, combined hourly rates somewhere north of $5,000. None of them had an answer. The offer had materialized that morning at 9:14 exactly. Appeared in Marcus's inbox while he was drinking coffee and scrolling through the congratulatory comments on his Instagram post. A formal acquisition proposal from a company that barely existed according to public records. We researched them extensively, the lead attorney said. Jonathan Harker, Harvard Law. $650 per hour. The kind of lawyer who made partners nervous when he walked past their offices. Windmere Holdings is a subsidiary of a larger investment firm. Private, discreet, they operate primarily through shell companies to avoid unwanted attention. And they want to buy Brennan Tech. They want to buy Brennan Tech. Jonathan slid the offer documents across the table. Every page tagged with colored T's. Every significant clause highlighted. They are offering 18% above current market valuation, with a commitment to maintain existing management structures for at least 3 years. That is insane. Marcus picked up the documents, flipped through them with growing disbelief. After Harrington pulled out, after all the questions from the board, after everything, someone shows up offering more than we are worth? Sometimes opportunities appear when you least expect them, Jonathan said carefully. The question is whether we want to pursue this particular opportunity. What choice do we have? Marcus set down the documents, leaned back in his chair. We need capital infusion within 60 days or we start missing payroll. The board is asking questions I do not have good answers for. This offer is exactly what we need. Perhaps we should conduct more due diligence. Patricia Holloway spoke from the far end of the table, the longest-serving member of the board, gray hair cut short, reading glasses perched on her nose. The kind of woman who noticed things other people missed. We know nothing about these people, their motivations, their long-term plans for the company. We know they are willing to pay above market value and keep me as CEO, Marcus said. His voice carried the confidence of a man who believed he was finally winning again. What more do we need to know? Across the table, Charlotte Monroe kept her expression professionally neutral, betraying nothing. She was there as the Brennan family corporate attorney, had been handling their legal affairs for 3 years. Her presence at board meetings was expected, required even. No one questioned why she was taking notes on her tablet rather than on paper. No one noticed that those notes were being transmitted in real time to Eleanor Ashford sitting in a hotel suite 3 miles away. He is reading the offer now, Charlie typed, expressing surprise at the generous terms. Patricia Holloway is skeptical, but the rest of the board seems relieved. They want this to work. They need this to work. Eleanor read the message, smiled, typed back, "Good, let him get comfortable. Let them all get comfortable. Comfort makes people careless." In the conference room, Marcus was holding court, explaining to the board why this offer was the answer to all their problems, why Windmere Holdings was the partner they had been looking for, why everything was finally going their way. "This is exactly what we needed," he said, his smile the same one that had charmed investors and employees in Eleanor for years. A clean acquisition, new capital, stability for our employees, and I stay on as CEO to manage the transition. "The terms do seem remarkably favorable," Patricia said. "Almost too favorable. Why would anyone offer so much for a company in our current financial position? Sometimes people see value where others see risk." Marcus waved away her concern. "Maybe they have information we do not have. Maybe they see potential we have not fully explored. The point is, they want to buy us, and they are willing to pay well for the privilege." Jonathan Harker cleared his throat. "I recommend we take 48 hours to conduct proper due diligence. Review the acquiring company's financials. Verify their ability to actually close this transaction. We do not have 48 hours. Marcus's smile flickered, disappeared. His voice took on the edge it always carried when he was being challenged. "We need an answer for the investors by end of week." This offer is that answer. Patricia studied him carefully, the way she had been studying him for the past 18 months, the way someone studied a bridge they were no longer sure would hold their weight. "What exactly is our current cash position, Marcus?" She asked the question casually, like it was not the most important question anyone could ask. Marcus hesitated, a fraction of a second. Most people would not have noticed. Patricia noticed everything. "Sufficient to meet our obligations through the end of the quarter," he said finally, "as I reported to the board last month." Charlie typed another message to Eleanor. "Patricia is asking about cash position. Marcus is lying. His tells are showing. She knows something is wrong." Eleanor typed back, "Let it play out. The truth will surface soon enough." The meeting continued for another 45 minutes. Terms discussed, concerns raised, objections overcome. By the end, Marcus had what he wanted: a vote to proceed with negotiations, a mandate to close the deal as quickly as possible. He walked out of that conference room feeling like a man who had just been saved from drowning, feeling like the universe had finally decided to reward him for all his hard work and dedication. He had no idea that the hand reaching down to pull him from the water was actually pushing him deeper under the surface. 3 miles away, Eleanor set down her phone, stood up from the hotel desk, walked to the bathroom. She turned on the faucet, let the water run, hot enough to fill the room with steam, fogging the mirrors, making the air thick and heavy. Then she did something she had not done since her mother died 15 years ago, since grief had overwhelmed her completely and she had lost the ability to function like a normal human being. She climbed into the bathtub fully clothed. Let the hot water soak through her dress, through her undergarments, through everything. She lay there with her pregnant belly rising above the surface like an island. The baby kicked. She counted the kicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She thought about the nursery she had decorated by herself. The gray walls, the elephant mobile, the rocking chair. She thought about the woman who had painted those walls. The woman who had believed in a future with Marcus. The woman who had imagined sitting in that rocking chair with a baby in her arms and a husband who loved her standing in the doorway. That woman seemed like a stranger now, someone she had read about in a book, someone whose story she knew, but whose feelings she could no longer access. The tears came, not for Marcus. She was surprised to discover she felt nothing for Marcus anymore. Not love, not hate, not even anger. Just emptiness where the feelings used to be. She cried for the future she had imagined, the family she had wanted, the life that had only ever existed in her mind. She cried until the water went cold, until her fingers pruned, until there was nothing left inside her except quiet exhaustion. Then the baby kicked again, harder than before, a strong, determined movement that seemed to say, "Are you done yet? Because we have work to do." Eleanor placed both hands on her belly, felt her daughter moving, rolling, getting comfortable for the battle ahead. "You are right," she whispered. "I am sorry. I needed a moment, but I am back now. I am ready." She climbed out of the bath, dried herself off, changed into clean clothes, a black dress, simple, professional, the kind of thing Eleanor Ashford would wear. She checked her phone. 14 messages waiting. 3 from Charlie with updates from the board meeting. 5 from her father with questions about the acquisition timeline. 2 from Thomas Whitfield with legal documents requiring her signature. 4 from Henry Crawford with evidence of additional fund transfers. She started making calls. The first was to Thomas Whitfield. "The due diligence is complete," Thomas said without preamble, his voice grim in the way it only got when the news was bad. "Brennan Tech is in worse shape than we anticipated. Tell me everything. The company has been falsifying earnings reports for 3 years, not 2. 3. The fraud started 6 months after your wedding, right around the time the real revenue growth stopped and Marcus needed to show the board that everything was still on track." "How extensive?" "Extensive, Thomas paused. She heard papers shuffling. Marcus personally signed off on fake contracts with shell companies to inflate revenue numbers. He approved bonuses for himself based on performance metrics that never existed. He moved money into offshore accounts that do not appear anywhere in the official financial statements. SEC violations, multiple counts, plus wire fraud, plus potential money laundering charges depending on where the offshore funds originated. If this goes to the federal authorities, Marcus Brennan is looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. Eleanor closed her eyes. Process this information. Her husband was not just a cheater, not just a liar. He was a criminal on a scale she had not fully appreciated until this moment. "Does the board know?" she asked. "They suspect something is wrong, that Patricia Holloway has been asking questions for months. But no one has the full picture yet." "They will soon." "Yes," Thomas's voice was careful. "Once the acquisition closes, we are legally obligated to report what we found to the SEC. There is no way to hide it. The investigation will follow. The criminal referral will follow. Everything Marcus has done will become public." Eleanor thought about the employees, the 347 people whose jobs depended on Brennan Tech, the pension funds they had contributed to for decades. The families who needed those paychecks to pay mortgages and buy groceries and send children to school. Thomas, can we save them? The employees? The people who had nothing to do with Marcus's crimes. If we acquire before the SEC investigation triggers, we can restructure the company without criminal liability attaching to the legitimate operations. The pension funds can be protected, the contracts honored, the jobs preserved. Then we move fast. Tomorrow. But I want one thing added to the final agreement. Name it, Marcus's resignation, effective immediately upon signing, with a non-compete clause spanning 5 years, a non-disclosure agreement preventing him from discussing the terms, and a complete forfeiture of any golden parachute provisions in his current contract. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. You want him out of his own company? He said finally. Immediately. With nothing. He built his identity on being CEO of Brennan Tech. Eleanor's voice was steady, calm, completely certain. The self-made man, the visionary entrepreneur, the leader everyone admires. Take that away and he is nothing. Just another con artist who got caught. That is a particularly cruel form of justice, Thomas observed. He kicked me out of my home while I was 7 months pregnant, while his mistress laughed at me, while she wore my anniversary gift and told me it was better this way. Eleanor paused. Let the silence make her point. I am not cruel, Thomas. I am just done pretending to be kind to people who do not deserve it. The acquisition documents were finalized at 3:47 in the morning. Eleanor signed each page in the same blue ink her father used for important contracts, a superstition from his early days in business. Blue ink for deals that would change the world. By sunrise, Winmere Holdings would officially own Brennan Tech Solutions. By noon, the world would know who was behind Winmere. And Marcus Brennan would finally understand the consequences of underestimating a quiet woman. Marcus Brennan woke up on Friday morning feeling like a king. The bedroom was flooded with October sunlight, golden rays streaming through the windows he had never bothered to cover with curtains, because why would you hide a view this spectacular? The Manhattan skyline spread out before him like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. He stretched luxuriously in the California king bed. Egyptian cotton sheets, 2,000 thread count, new ones he had ordered the day after Eleanor left. He did not want anything in this house that reminded him of her, of the life they had pretended to have, of the 7 years he had wasted on a woman who could never match his ambition. The other side of the bed was empty. Vanessa had gone to her spin class at 6, left a note on his pillow. Back by 9. Cannot wait to celebrate tonight. XOXO. He smiled at the note. At the red lipstick mark she had pressed against the paper. At everything it represented. The acquisition papers were signed. His company was saved. The investors would get their returns. The board would get off his back. He would remain CEO for at least 3 more years with a salary increase and expanded stock options. Everything he had worked for was finally coming together. He showered with the expensive body wash Vanessa had bought him, shaved with the straight razor that had belonged to his grandfather, dressed in his favorite gray suit with the blue tie that matched his eyes. He looked at himself in the mirror, liked what he saw, successful, confident, handsome, a man at the peak of his powers with the best years still ahead of him. His phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. Text from his assistant, Sarah. Board meeting moved up. 9 a.m. Urgent. All members required. Conference room A. Marcus frowned. He had not scheduled anything for today. The acquisition was done. The deal was closed. What could possibly be urgent enough to require a Friday morning emergency meeting? He typed back, "What is this about?" Sarah's response came immediately. "I do not know. The request came from the new majority shareholders directly. Everyone is already here. New majority shareholders." The words sent a small chill down Marcus's spine, but he pushed it away. This was probably a just standard procedure. The new owners wanting to meet the management team, make sure everyone was aligned on the transition plan. He drove to the office in his Tesla, windows down, October air cool and crisp, music playing loud enough to feel it in his chest. This was going to be a good day. He could feel it. The universe was finally rewarding him for all his hard work and sacrifice. The lobby of Brennan Tech was unusually quiet when he walked through the glass doors at 8:53. The receptionist, Janet, looked at him strangely, her eyes flicking away the moment he tried to meet them. Sarah was waiting by the elevator, her face carefully neutral in the way it got when she was trying not to show what she was thinking. "They are already in the conference room," she said. "All of them. All of who?" She did not answer, just stepped aside to let him into the elevator. The 43rd floor was chaos contained, people moving through hallways with purpose, conversations stopping when Marcus walked past, everyone avoiding eye contact like he was carrying something contagious. The conference room doors were closed. Through the frosted glass he could see shapes, people sitting around the table, more people than should be at a routine transition meeting. He opened the door. The conversation inside stopped immediately, every face turning toward him, every eye watching him enter. The board members were there, all 7 of them. Patricia Holloway at the far end looking like she had swallowed something bitter. The lawyers were there, Jonathan Harker and his team on one side of the table, papers spread out in front of them like evidence at a trial. And at the head of the table, in his seat, the chair he had occupied for 12 years, the position from which he had built an empire, a woman in a charcoal Armani suit, pearls around her neck, dark hair pulled back from her face, makeup perfect, posture impeccable, pregnant belly visible beneath the tailored jacket. "Eleanor." Marcus said her name like he could not believe it, like he was seeing a ghost, like reality had suddenly become a nightmare he could not wake up from. "What are you doing here? This is a private board meeting. You have no right to be in this building." 3 people stood behind Eleanor, Charlotte Monroe in a black suit looking like a woman who had been waiting years for this moment, an older man in charcoal gray with cold blue eyes and silver hair, a shorter man carrying a leather briefcase stuffed with documents. Marcus, Eleanor's voice was calm, level, nothing like the broken woman he had kicked out of his house 4 days ago. "I believe you have met my father. Your father." Marcus's eyes moved to the older man, recognition flickering. Something he had seen somewhere. A magazine cover, maybe? A business journal? "Your father runs a small investment firm in Connecticut." "You told me that. 20 employees. Nothing significant. I said he was in finance." Eleanor did not blink. "You heard what you wanted to hear, Marcus. You always do." The older man stepped forward, extended his hand for a shake that Marcus was too shocked to complete. "William Ashford," he said, "founder and chief executive officer of Ashford Capital. We manage approximately $2.3 billion in assets. Perhaps you have heard of us." The color drained from Marcus's face. His legs went weak. He grabbed the back of the nearest chair to keep from falling. Ashford Capital. The name every financial professional in America knew. The private investment firm that managed money for royalty and billionaires and sovereign wealth funds. The company that had turned down his application for funding 6 years ago because they did not invest in companies that could not demonstrate sustainable revenue growth. "That is not possible," Marcus whispered. "Eleanor Brennan has no money, no family connections. She works at a nonprofit. She drives a Honda." "Eleanor Ashford," William corrected. "She gave up my name when she married you. Gave up everything, actually. The inheritance, the position at my company, the life she had been preparing for since childhood. She wanted to build something on her own, wanted to be loved for who she was rather than what she had." William's voice hardened. "And you threw her away, kicked her out of her own home, laughed while your mistress wore her anniversary gift, called her hysterical." He paused, let the silence fill the room. "That was a mistake, Marcus, a very significant mistake." Patricia Holloway cleared her throat. The sound was very loud in the shocked silence. "Could someone please explain what is happening?" she said, her voice measured, professional, hiding the satisfaction that was threatening to break through. "I believe the board deserves to understand the situation we are facing." "Of course." Eleanor walked slowly around the table, taking her time, enjoying every step. "As of 6 o'clock this morning, Windmere Holdings completed its acquisition of Brennan Tech Solutions. Windmere is a subsidiary of Ashford Capital, which means that as of this morning, my family owns this company." She reached her father's side, turned to face Marcus. "I am the majority shareholder now, and as my first act as owner, I am accepting your resignation, effective immediately." The room went completely silent. The kind of silence that happens when everything changes and no one knows what to say. Marcus's hands were shaking, just like Eleanor's had 4 days ago, when she stood in the doorway of their bedroom, when she watched her marriage dissolve, when she heard those words that had ended everything. "Get out, Eleanor. You cannot do this," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "This is my company. I built this. I created this. You cannot just—" "Actually, I can." Eleanor pulled a folder from the briefcase Thomas Whitfield was holding, slid it across the table. "You signed the acquisition agreement yesterday. Page 47, paragraph 3, grants the acquiring company the right to restructure management at any time for any reason during the first 90 days of ownership." She opened the folder, spread the documents where everyone could see. "Additionally, our forensic accountants have completed their review of Brennan Tech's financial records. What they found is concerning." She began laying out papers like a dealer laying out cards. Falsified earnings statements dating back 3 years. Hidden debts totaling $47.3 million. Fake contracts with shell companies in Delaware and Nevada designed to inflate revenue numbers. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland containing funds that do not appear anywhere in official financial statements. Each accusation was another paper, another piece of evidence, another nail in a coffin Marcus did not know was being built around him. In this, Eleanor held up a final document, a compensation agreement between Brennan Tech Solutions and one Vanessa Cole, listed as a senior strategy consultant, annual salary of $300,000, plus bonuses, plus a company car, plus an apartment lease in Tribeca. She looked directly at Marcus. "The total value of Ms. Cole's compensation over the past 18 months comes to approximately $760,000. For work that our review shows amounts to attending 12 meetings and submitting 4 expense reports." The board members exchanged horrified glances. Patricia Holloway's expression had shifted from satisfaction to something approaching disgust. "This is fraud," she said quietly. "Securities fraud. Embezzlement. Everything we suspected but could never prove." "Yes." Eleanor turned to face the entire room. "And I am sorry to say that all of you as board members have potential legal exposure. You signed off on financial statements that contain material misrepresentations. You approved executive compensation packages that now appear to be connected to personal misconduct." She let that sink in before continuing. "Ashford Capital intends to fully cooperate with the SEC investigation that will inevitably follow these disclosures. We will provide all documentation, all communications, everything our forensic team has uncovered." She paused, made sure everyone was listening. "However, our cooperation does not need to extend to naming individual board members who were deceived by their CEO. If the board chooses to support the transition to new management, if you vote to remove Marcus Brennan from all positions of authority within this company, then Ashford Capital will make clear to regulators that the fraud was committed by one individual operating without the knowledge or approval of the board." She smiled, just slightly. "The choice is yours." The vote took less than 3 minutes, 7-0. Marcus Brennan removed as CEO, removed as board chairman, removed from all positions of authority within Brennan Tech Solutions. "Security will escort you from the building," Patricia Holloway said. Her voice contained no sympathy, no hesitation. "Your personal effects will be boxed and sent to whatever address you provide." Marcus stood in the center of the room, his empire crumbling around him, his identity dissolving. Everything he had built over 12 years destroyed in less than an hour. "You did this," he said to Eleanor, his voice hollow, broken. "You destroyed everything. Everything I worked for. Everything I sacrificed." Eleanor stood, straightened her jacket, picked up her purse. "No, Marcus." Her voice was clear enough to carry to every corner of the room. "You destroyed yourself. You lied to your investors. You stole from your employees. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. All I did was make sure there were witnesses." She walked toward the door, then stopped, turned back. "One more thing. The next time you decide to kick your pregnant wife out of her own home, the next time you tell a woman to get out while your mistress laughs," she smiled, that cold Ashford smile, "make sure you know who you are talking to." She walked out of that conference room with her head high, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her father beside her, Charlie behind her. Thomas following with his briefcase full of damning evidence. From the conference room, she heard Marcus Brennan begin to scream. Security was already on the way. The news broke at 12:15. Every business news site in America ran the same story within minutes of each other. The headline writers must have thought they had died and gone to journalism heaven. Brennan Tech CEO ousted in surprise acquisition. Hidden heiress wife revealed as new majority shareholder. The story had everything: betrayal, revenge, hidden identities, a pregnant wife, a billionaire father, a cheating husband brought to his knees in his own boardroom. By 1 o'clock, Marcus Brennan was trending on Twitter. By 2 o'clock, the hashtag Justice for Eleanor had accumulated over 50,000 posts. By 3 o'clock, someone had dug up his Instagram post from 4 days ago, and the screenshot was everywhere. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag love wins. Except love had not won. Justice had won. Accountability had won. The quiet woman he had dismissed and discarded had won. The think pieces started appearing by early afternoon. What Eleanor Ashford's revenge tells us about power and gender in corporate America. The billionaire heiress who gave up everything for love and then took everything back. He kicked her out while pregnant. She bought his company the next morning. Eleanor did one interview, 4 minutes with a local news affiliate. She sat in a leather chair in her father's office, wearing the same charcoal suit from the boardroom. Composed, measured, professional. Ms. Ashford. The reporter leaned forward with the hungry expression of someone who knew they had the interview of the year. Do you have any comment on the reports that your husband was engaged in a long-term affair with an employee? My marriage ended due to irreconcilable differences, Eleanor said, her voice steady, her face revealing nothing. My focus now is on the employees of Brennan Tech and ensuring a smooth transition for everyone affected by these changes and the allegations of financial misconduct. Those matters are being handled by the appropriate authorities. I trust the process will be thorough and fair. Some people are calling what you did revenge. What would you say to that? Eleanor paused, considered the question, chose her words with the precision of someone who had learned from the best lawyers and negotiators in the world. Accountability is not revenge, she said. Truth is not revenge. Consequences are not revenge. Marcus Brennan made choices. He is now experiencing the results of those choices. That is simply how the world works. The interview aired at 6. By 7, it had been viewed 12 million times. The public verdict was overwhelmingly in Eleanor's favor. She did not destroy his life. She exposed it. Imagine cheating on your pregnant billionaire wife and posting about it on Instagram. The absolute audacity. He called her hysterical. He told her to get out. Now she owns everything he had. This is the most satisfying story I have ever read. Some people defended Marcus, of course. There were always people who defended men like Marcus. We are only hearing her side. This seems like entrapment. She obviously planned this from the beginning. But those voices were drowned out by the avalanche of support for the quiet woman who had refused to stay quiet any longer. Vanessa Cole deleted all her social media accounts by 4 o'clock. Her Tribeca apartment was photographed by paparazzi who had apparently camped outside overnight. Moving boxes in the hallway. A U-Haul truck double parked on the street. A woman in sunglasses hurrying past with her face hidden. The company had already terminated her consulting contract. The company car had been repossessed. The apartment lease had been canceled, effective immediately. $760,000 worth of lifestyle, gone overnight. By 5 o'clock, Marcus himself had been removed from the Brennan Tech building. Photographed walking to his car, surrounded by security guards who were not protecting him, but rather making sure he actually left. He looked different in those photographs. Smaller somehow, diminished. The confidence that had defined him for 34 years, replaced by something that looked like shock, like confusion, like a man who had just woken up to discover that the world did not work the way he had always assumed it worked. Eleanor watched none of it. She was at the house, her house now. The locks had been changed that morning. A private security team patrolled the perimeter. No reporters allowed within 200 feet. Vanessa's belongings were in boxes on the front lawn. Clothes and shoes and jewelry and makeup. The detritus of an affair that had cost Eleanor her marriage and now cost Vanessa everything. Marcus's belongings were there too. His golf clubs, his vintage watch collection, his designer suits, the personal effects of a man who no longer lived here, who no longer belonged anywhere Eleanor was. She walked through the house slowly, room by room, reclaiming what was hers. The living room where she had hosted dinner parties for his investors, smiling and charming and pretending everything was fine while Marcus flirted with other women right in front of her. The kitchen where she had cooked meals he never appreciated, spent hours preparing his favorite dishes, cleaned up after him while he barely noticed she existed. The bedroom where everything had ended. She stopped at the doorway, could not make herself cross the threshold, could not enter the space where her marriage had died while his mistress laughed. Not yet, maybe not ever. The bed would need to go. The sheets, the nightstands, everything in that room that reminded her of what had happened. She would burn it if she had to, start completely fresh, create something new from the ashes of something destroyed. Instead, she walked upstairs to the nursery. It was exactly as she had left it. The gray walls, the elephant mobile turning slowly in the air conditioning, the rocking chair by the window, the soft blankets folded in the crib. Vanessa had not touched anything in here, had not changed anything, had not left her mark on this space. Maybe she had not had time. Maybe she had not cared about a nursery for a baby that was not hers. Maybe even Vanessa Cole had limits to her cruelty. Eleanor sat in the rocking chair, placed her hands on her belly, felt her daughter moving inside her. The room was quiet, peaceful, waiting. She rocked slowly back and forth, the motion soothing in its rhythm. The same motion her mother had used when Eleanor was small, the same motion mothers had used for thousands of years. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. She did not count. Her phone buzzed eventually. Charlie. You okay? Charlie asked. I will be. You did it, Ellie. Do you understand what you accomplished today? Every woman who has ever been dismissed or diminished or thrown away is celebrating tonight. You showed them what is possible. You showed them that quiet does not mean weak. I know. Charlie paused, waited for more. For celebration, for triumph, for something that sounded like victory. Eleanor gave her none of that. I am tired, Charlie. I am so very tired. I have been running on anger and adrenaline for 4 days, and now there is nothing left. Just exhaustion. That is normal. Everything you have been through, the betrayal, the planning, the execution, it takes something out of you. But you will recover. You will heal. And when you do, you will be stronger than ever. I know, Eleanor touched her belly where the baby was moving. I have someone counting on me now. Someone more important than revenge or justice or anything else. I need to be strong for her. You already are strong. Charlie's voice was warm, gentle, the voice of a friend rather than an attorney. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start building something new. The call ended. Eleanor sat in the rocking chair until the sun went down, until the room filled with shadows, until the elephant mobile became a silhouette against the window. She thought about Marcus, about the man she had married, the man she had loved, the man she had made herself small to accommodate. She did not hate him. That surprised her. After everything he had done, she had expected to feel rage, burning, consuming rage that would fuel her for years. Instead, she felt nothing. Empty. Like the space where Marcus had lived inside her heart had been scooped out and left hollow. Maybe the hate would come later. Or maybe she would skip hate entirely and go straight to indifference. Maybe Marcus Brennan would become nothing more than a cautionary tale she told her daughter someday. About the importance of knowing your worth. About the danger of making yourself small for people who cannot love you no matter how small you become. She thought about all the women who had been in her position, betrayed, humiliated, told they were not enough, thrown away like garbage. Most of them did not have billionaire fathers. Most of them could not buy their husbands' companies overnight. Most of them had to rebuild their lives with nothing but their own strength and determination. But every woman had something. Every woman had reserves of power she did not know existed until she needed them. Every woman had a moment of clarity when the fog lifted and she could see exactly what needed to be done. Eleanor had hidden herself for 7 years, had buried the Ashford heiress beneath the careful construction of an ordinary wife, had pretended to be less than she was because that was what Marcus seemed to need. But she had never been weak, had never been helpless, had never been the fragile creature Marcus imagined her to be. She had been waiting, gathering strength, preparing for a battle she hoped would never come. And when it came, she had been ready. The baby kicked, a strong, determined movement. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. SEC investigators, media attention, the slow process of healing from everything that had been broken. But tonight, Eleanor sat in her rocking chair in her nursery in her house, surrounded by the life she would build for her daughter. And for the first time in 4 days, she was not afraid. 3 weeks later, Marcus Brennan stood in a federal courtroom, not for the divorce. That particular legal battle was still grinding through the system. Lawyers fighting over assets and custody and the proper valuation of everything Marcus had hidden in offshore accounts. This was the SEC hearing, preliminary but public, the first official step in what would become a very long and very painful fall from grace. The courtroom was packed. Reporters in the gallery, photographers waiting outside. The story had grown too big to ignore, too perfect, too satisfying for anyone who had ever watched a powerful man escape consequences he deserved. Marcus sat at the defendant's table wearing a suit that no longer fit quite right. He had lost weight in the past 3 weeks, the stress of watching everything collapse, the stress of realizing that no amount of charm or manipulation would save him now. His lawyers flanked him on either side, expensive attorneys billing expensive hours, trying to minimize the damage from crimes that could not be minimized. His mother, Diane, sat in the gallery, stone-faced and furious. The Brennan family reputation, the social standing she had spent 50 years cultivating, all of it crumbling in public view. Eleanor was not there, did not need to be. Her attorneys had submitted evidence. Her accountants had provided documentation. Her father's forensic team had delivered testimony that left no room for doubt. She watched the hearing on television from the comfort of her home. Sound muted. The images speaking for themselves. Marcus looking small and defeated at the defendant's table. The lawyer shuffling papers. The judge reviewing documents with growing disgust. The reporters taking notes that would become tomorrow's headlines. William sat beside her on the couch. Silent. Present. Offering support without needing to say anything. "How do you feel?" he asked eventually. Eleanor considered the question, really thought about what she was feeling in this moment of reckoning. 3 weeks ago, she would have said anger, betrayal, desperation for something that felt like justice. Now she felt something different. Empty, she said, but not the bad kind of empty. Like I cleaned out a house that was full of things I didn't need, things that were weighing me down, taking up space that should have been used for something better. And now there is room. She touched her belly where her daughter was moving. Room for what actually matters. Room to build something new. On the television screen, the judge was reading the formal charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, false statements to federal investigators, each count carrying potential prison time that added up to decades. Marcus's lawyers had negotiated a settlement, fines and bans rather than prosecution, cooperation in exchange for reduced consequences. The kind of deal powerful men made when they finally realized they could not escape accountability completely. The judge accepted the settlement with visible reluctance. $4.7 million in penalties, banned from serving as an officer or director of any public company for 15 years, a formal criminal referral to the Department of Justice for potential additional charges. Marcus Brennan walked out of that courtroom to a wall of cameras and shouted questions. His lawyer tried to hustle him toward the waiting car, but Marcus stopped, turned, faced the cameras with the defiant expression of a man who still did not understand what he had done wrong. "Eleanor Ashford is a vindictive, manipulative woman who destroyed my life because I dared to leave her," he said into the nearest microphone. "This is not justice, this is revenge. Pure and simple." The clip went viral within an hour, but not the way Marcus intended. "She exposed his crimes and he is calling it revenge," someone commented. "This man is incapable of taking responsibility for anything. Imagine standing outside a courthouse after being convicted of fraud and still blaming your pregnant ex-wife," another wrote. "The audacity is genuinely impressive. He kicked her out while she was 7 months pregnant, while his mistress laughed. And now he is the victim," a third added. "Men like this never learn." Eleanor watched the clip with the sound still muted, his face twisting with anger, his finger pointing at the camera. his mouth forming words she did not need to hear to understand. He would never take responsibility, would never admit fault, would spend the rest of his life convinced that he was the wrong party, that everyone else was to blame for his failures. That was fine. She did not need him to understand, did not need his apology, did not need anything from Marcus Brennan except his absence. He cannot hurt me anymore, she said to her father. He cannot touch me. He cannot make me small. That part of my life is over. William put his arm around his daughter, pulled her close. What comes next? He asked. Something better. Eleanor leaned her head against his shoulder, the way she had when she was a little girl, when her mother was still alive, when the world seemed full of possibility. Something true. 6 months later, Eleanor Grace Ashford came screaming into the world, 7 pounds, 4 ounces, 21 inches long. A healthy baby with 10 perfect fingers and 10 perfect toes and lungs that could wake the entire maternity ward when she was hungry. The delivery had been long, 18 hours of labor, epidural that wore off at the worst possible moment, contractions that seemed to last forever, moments when Eleanor was certain she could not continue, could not push anymore, could not possibly survive this. But she did, because mothers do, because something inside her was stronger than pain, stronger than exhaustion, stronger than anything she had faced before. Charlie held one hand, William held the other. Dr. Shaw coached her through every contraction. One more push, Eleanor, Dr. Shaw said. One more and she is here. One more and you get to meet your daughter. Eleanor pushed with everything she had. Every ounce of strength, every reserve of determination, everything she had been building inside herself for 9 months, for a year, for her entire life. And then that cry, that perfect, furious, beautiful cry. They placed the baby on her chest, skin to skin, heart to heart. 2 heartbeats that had been one for 9 months now separate, but still connected in ways that would never completely break. Eleanor looked down at her daughter, at this tiny person who had been waiting inside her, who had kicked and rolled and hiccuped through the worst and best months of her life. Hi, Grace, she whispered, her voice breaking with something that was not grief. That was its opposite. I am your mom, and I am going to love you forever. No matter what, forever. The divorce had been finalized 2 months ago. Marcus had fought it. Of course he had argued that Eleanor had entrapped him, that the acquisition had been planned from the beginning, that she had manipulated the entire situation to steal his company and destroy his reputation. His lawyers had presented arguments that sounded reasonable if you did not know the facts, had painted a picture of a vindictive woman scorned, a billionaire heiress playing games with a self-made man's livelihood. The judge had not been impressed. Mr. Brennan, she had said, reading her decision with the patience of someone who had heard these arguments many times before, the evidence shows that you engaged in a long-term extramarital affair, that you committed multiple counts of securities fraud, that you forcibly evicted your pregnant wife from your shared home while your mistress was present. She had paused, removed her reading glasses, looked directly at Marcus. Ms. Ashford's subsequent business decisions, while unconventional, were entirely legal. The fact that she had the resources to hold you accountable for your actions does not make her the villain of this story. You created this situation. You are responsible for the consequences. Full custody to Eleanor, the marital residence retained, all hidden assets recovered and returned. A structured visitation schedule that Marcus had yet to exercise even once. He had not called, had not written, had not made any attempt to see his daughter. Eleanor had expected to feel anger about that, to rage at his abandonment, at his cowardice, at his complete failure to take responsibility for the life he had helped create. Instead, she felt relieved. Grace would grow up without the complication of a father who had never wanted her, without the confusion of trying to love someone who was incapable of love, without the pain of hoping for attention from someone who had already proven himself unworthy of trust. She would grow up knowing exactly who her father was, when she was old enough to understand. When she asked the inevitable questions, Eleanor would tell her the truth, all of it, and Grace would know that she was loved completely by the mother who had fought for her. That was enough. That would have to be enough. The first night home from the hospital, Eleanor sat in the rocking chair in the nursery, Grace sleeping on her chest, the elephant mobile turning slowly above them in the gentle breeze from the open window. 3 in the morning, the whole world quiet, just the sound of her daughter breathing, just the rhythm of her own heart. She thought about the woman who had decorated this room over a year ago, the woman who had painted the walls and assembled the mobile and found the rocking chair at the antique shop in Connecticut. That woman had believed in a future with Marcus, had imagined sitting in this exact chair with a baby in her arms and a loving husband standing in the doorway, had dreamed of happiness that looked like the photos in magazines. That woman seemed like a stranger now, someone from a story Eleanor had read a long time ago, someone whose feelings she remembered but could no longer access. She had spent 7 years performing a version of herself for Marcus, softer, quieter, less ambitious, less intelligent, less everything. She had thought that was what love required, that you had to diminish yourself to make room for someone else, that your own light had to dim so theirs could shine brighter. But real love did not work that way. Real love celebrated your full size. Real love wanted you to grow, to thrive, to become everything you were capable of becoming. Marcus had never loved her, not really, not the way love was supposed to feel. He had loved his idea of her, the supporting character in his story, the quiet wife who made him look good. The moment she showed her true self, he had been terrified, had seen the Ashford heiress beneath the surface, had recognized that she was more powerful than him, more capable, more everything. And he had responded the only way men like him knew how, by trying to destroy her, by kicking her out, by replacing her with someone who made him feel superior again. That was his failure, not hers. His weakness, not hers. Grace stirred on her chest, made a small noise, settled back into sleep. "I'm going to tell you a story," Eleanor whispered. "Someday, when you are old enough, about a woman who thought she had to be small, who hid herself for love, who lost everything she thought she wanted. She kissed her daughter's forehead, breathed in the smell of baby shampoo and new life. But she did not actually lose anything that mattered, because the things that matter cannot be taken by people who do not deserve them. The things that matter stay with you forever." Grace yawned, her tiny mouth opening and closing, and she lived happily ever after. Not because a prince umped her, but because she saved herself. 1 year later, Eleanor stood at the window of her new office, CEO of Ashford Capital. The title still felt strange sometimes. Too big, too important, too much responsibility for someone who had spent 7 years pretending to be ordinary. But she was growing into it, day by day. Decision by decision, meeting by meeting. Her father had stepped down 6 months ago, his heart. Nothing serious, but enough to convince him that it was time. Time to rest, time to travel, time to let his daughter take the reins. The transition had been smooth. The board trusted her because she had earned their trust. The investors respected her because she had demonstrated her capabilities. The employees welcomed her because she treated them the way she wanted to be treated. The view from her corner office was spectacular. Manhattan spread out below in every direction. Towers of glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Millions of people living their lives, working toward their dreams, building futures they believed in. Her city now, her company, her legacy. Grace was in the attached playroom with Maria the nanny. Eleanor could hear her through the baby monitor on her desk, babbling happily, learning new words every day. Mama, ball, up, more, book, please. A vocabulary that expanded faster than seemed possible. A personality emerging that was already so clearly her own. A knock at her office door. "You have a visitor," Charlie said, standing in the doorway with an expression Eleanor could not quite read. "He says it is personal." "Who?" Charlie stepped aside. Marcus Brennan stood in the hallway. He looked different. The arrogant CEO she had married was gone, replaced by someone who seemed smaller, older, worn down by the weight of consequences he had never expected to face. His suit did not fit well, off the rack rather than custom-tailored. His hair had gone gray at the temples. His face had new lines that had not been there 2 years ago. "Eleanor," he said, "please, just 5 minutes. That is all I am asking. 5 minutes and then I will go away." She considered refusing. Had every right to, every reason. He had kicked her out of their home while she was pregnant, had laughed while his mistress wore her robe, had blamed her publicly for his own crimes, had never once reached out to see his daughter. But she had made herself a promise during the worst days of her life, a promise about the kind of person she wanted to be. She would not let fear make her decisions, would not let anger control her actions, would not become the vindictive woman Marcus had accused her of being. 5 minutes, she said. Come in. Marcus walked into her office slowly, looking around, taking in the view, the furniture, the photographs on her desk. There was one of Grace on her first birthday, cake frosting all over her face, laughing at something off camera. Pure joy captured in a single moment. He stared at that photograph for a long time. She looks like you, he said finally. The same eyes, the same smile. I know. I made mistakes, he said, still looking at the photograph, unable to look at Eleanor. Massive, terrible mistakes that I cannot take back. You committed crimes, yes. He finally met her eyes. I did, and I am paying for them. The fines, the ban, the criminal investigation that is still ongoing. Everything I built is gone. Everyone I thought was my friend disappeared the moment I could not do anything for them anymore. I am not going to feel sorry for you, Marcus. I am not asking you to. He sat down in the chair across from her desk, the visitor's chair, the position of someone asking for something they had no right to receive. I am asking for something else entirely. What? I have been in therapy every week for 8 months, working through everything, my childhood, my father, the way I learned to measure myself by success, by money, by how much power I could accumulate. He paused, swallowed hard. My therapist helped me understand something. I never learned how to love anyone except as an extension of myself. Never learned to see other people as real, as separate, as deserving of their own lives and dreams and desires. That is a very convenient realization to have after you lost everything. I know how it sounds. His voice cracked slightly. Believe me, I know. Another rich man who finds enlightenment after consequences finally catch up with him. Another abuser who claims he has changed now that he has no other choice. He looked at her directly, his eyes wet. But Eleanor, I have a daughter I have never held, never seen except in photographs, never heard laugh or cry or say her first word. And that is my fault. All of it. Every single day of her life that I have missed is because of choices I made. Because I was too proud, too ashamed, too broken to face what I had done. Eleanor studied him carefully, looking for the manipulation, the angle, the hidden agenda. She had become very good at seeing through people over the past 2 years, had learned to trust her instincts, to recognize deception before it could hurt her. She did not see any of that in Marcus right now. Just a broken man trying to find pieces of himself that might be worth saving. What exactly are you asking for? She said. A chance. His voice was barely above a whisper. Supervised visits. Whatever structure you are comfortable with. I will do parenting classes, family therapy, background checks, psychological evaluations, anything. He leaned forward in his chair. I do not expect forgiveness. I do not deserve forgiveness. I just want a chance to know my daughter, to be in her life, to show her that people can change, that mistakes do not have to define you forever. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, processing, deciding. The old Eleanor, the one who had made herself small for Marcus, who had accepted his crumbs of attention and called it love. That woman might have softened immediately, might have rushed to comfort him, might have taken responsibility for his feelings. The new Eleanor waited, let him sit in the uncertainty, let him understand that forgiveness was not something he could demand. She opened her desk drawer, pulled out a business card. This is Grace's pediatrician, she said. Dr. Margaret Wells. She can recommend a child psychologist who specializes in parent reintegration. Marcus took the card. His hands were trembling. You will need to complete a comprehensive program, 6 months minimum. Parenting, classes, continued therapy, background verification, references from mental health professionals who have worked with you. His eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Eleanor. I know this is more than I deserve. I know I am not doing this for you. Her voice was clear, final. Absolute. I am doing this because Grace deserves to know both her parents. The real versions. Not the masks we used to wear, not the stories we used to tell ourselves. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city she had learned to call home again. I am not the woman you married, Marcus. That woman was a performance, a character I created because I thought that was what love required, because I thought I had to be small for someone to love me. She turned to face him. I know who I am now, and I will never make myself small again. Not for you, not for anyone. Marcus nodded, stood, moved toward the door. You are remarkable, he said. You always were. I was just too threatened by your strength to appreciate it. Too small myself to see how big you really were. He paused with his hand on the doorframe. I hope Grace grows up to be exactly like you. Then he left, the door closing softly behind him. Charlie appeared a moment later, her expression concerned. You okay? Eleanor turned back to the window, the sunlight streaming in, the city alive and humming below. I am better than okay. From the playroom, Grace laughed, that pure, joyful sound that made everything else fade away. Mama, 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 Eleanor smiled. 2 years ago, she had sat in her car in the rain, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to imagine any future that was not filled with pain. Now she stood in an office at the top of a building her family had built. A mother, a CEO, a woman who had walked through fire and discovered she was made of something that did not burn. Get out, Eleanor. She remembered those words, how they had shattered her, how they had broken something she thought could never be repaired. Now she understood what they really meant. Not an ending, not a defeat, not the death of everything she had dreamed of. A door. And she had walked through it into a life bigger and better and more beautiful than anything Marcus Brennan could have imagined. Her phone buzzed. Her assistant's voice through the intercom. Ms. Ashford, your 9 o'clock is here. The merger team from the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund. $800 million deal. They are ready when you are. Eleanor walked to the playroom door, looked in at her daughter building with blocks, stacking them high, watching them fall, laughing, building again, just like her mother. She blew Grace a kiss, told Maria she would be back for lunch. Then she straightened her jacket, smoothed her hair, walked back to her desk with the stride of a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of. The conference room was waiting. The deal was waiting. The future was waiting. She pressed the intercom button. Send them in. The door opened. The meeting began. Another chapter starting. Outside her window, the sun climbed higher over Manhattan, light flooding through the glass, illuminating everything. This was the life she had built from the ashes of everything she lost. This was what happened when a quiet woman stopped being quiet. This was what it meant to finally come home. Get out. Yes, she had, and she had never looked back. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever been underestimated, if you believe that quiet women are just keeping score, then you are part of our family now. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story of strength and justice. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Eleanor's place? Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because every woman deserves to know her worth. See you in the next story.